Welcome back, everyone. This is George with Aquatic Concepts. Today we're going to be talking about this particular tank because I just redid this tank here in the last few days, and all new plants, a whole new scape pretty much, and fish are all the same. They've been in here about 3.5, almost 4 years now without any changes whatsoever, and all is going very well. Now, what I wanted to talk about today was the importance of the planted aquarium. We don't take a lot of consideration into just the beauty of the plants and what other function the plants may have as far as keeping your aquarium healthy. The number one thing that I like to tell everyone: when you're planting your aquarium, you're adding another level of filtration basically to that tank. I'm going to give you a couple of different angles here of this tank and how I've planted it, and I'm going to give you a reason why, and I'm going to give you some ideas of what plants are in here. So I'm not going to be on camera much today. This basically is just a update on this particular tank, and as I said, the reason why plants are so important and the function that they may have that's going to help you tremendously with filtration. I'm not going to repeat myself a whole bunch here. I want to dive right into the kinds of plants that we have here. For the most part, we have some Anubias in here. There's several different types of Anubias. We, of course, have Anubias nana, and then Anubias nana petite, which is right down in this area here, some up in this area here, and then just standard Anubias here, and then Anubias barista is over here, and then in this back area, just to add a little height, going with the flow of the eye here, are Java fern, which I really like Java fern because they hold up so well, and they serve a function to give you a little bit of height in your aquarium. But these low-level plants here are so important because there's probably, I would say, about 50 plants in this tank. You might not think that by looking at it, but they're layered in here so deep, and many of them are either attached to the rocks by some super glue that is safe for aquariums. Make sure if you are putting your aquarium together and you're using super glue, make sure it is a super glue that is proven to be safe for aquariums. That is essential and very important. Now, what I like to do is lay out things as much as I can and then come back and glue the plants to the rocks or the wood. I try to avoid wood as much as I possibly can. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I like to be able to stick it to the rocks, the plants to the rocks, I should say, because the wood, if you have to make a change later on and you still want to use that piece of wood, wood is expensive. It's one of the most important parts of the hardscape of your tank, but it's also important in the sense that you make sure that you don't damage it in any way, and you try to make it look as natural as you can. I don't want to drift off here because this really is about the planted aquarium, but this has a little bit to do with that in the sense that you want to make a nice flow where things are kind of on the move in one direction so that the plants look natural and there isn't anything that looks out of place here. So as you can see, we start down here, then we have the smaller plants that are in this area here, and then we have small mixed with some larger plants in this area, and then just underneath the melon discus here is some more small petite nana, and then various, like I said, different kinds of Anubias, which are very good low light plants. They will do very well in most aquariums as long as you have a good cleanup team. In other words, if your tank is not producing a lot of algae to begin with, The cleanup team would be your pleco, and that keeps the wood in your tank clean. Siamese algae eaters, which as you can see down in this corner would be these guys here. There's a couple, I would say probably 3 of those in here. Now these are starting to outgrow the tank. They're getting a little bit large, so we'll rotate those at some point. And of course, we also have our Corydoras. Excuse me. We do have our Corydoras, which are back in here. They're all over the place in this tank. There's a variety of Corys. There's Julie Corys, Survey Corys. There's Panda Corys. There's just all kinds of them in here. They're all kind of hiding right now because it's early morning where I'm at, and the lights in this tank just came on. So they're kind of night fish as far as when you'll see them most, because they're part of that essential cleanup team that you need to make sure that your plants are staying nice and clean. The Siamese algae eaters are constantly working, but the one thing, as I have told you in the past, and I'll just remind you, that as the Siamese algae eaters get bigger, they will tend to do less work on keeping your tank clean and rely a little bit more on your feeding than anything. So it's important that you rotate them out and give them an opportunity to go to a bigger tank where they won't get as much to eat, and they'll go back to eating the algae that might be on the leaf areas. That's really important because that kind of builds up, that diatom algae will build up on there if you don't have fish in there that will clean that off. Now I'm going to back up a little bit because this is a rather large tank. This is a 75 gallon, and it's important to note that the amount of plants that are in here are really just in this area here. We don't have any plants in the background here. This is more of a discus related planted tank, so it does have a central area in which the plants are, and then there's a lot of swimming room for the discus themselves. That's just really, really important with discus fish, that they have that room to swim, and no exception here. Again, it's kind of an island style. I do that quite often. If you watch my videos, I do lots of island style tanks as far as the scaping goes, but I like them because they look so natural. They look like you just come upon an area in the Amazon somewhere, and you have this piece of wood and rock that is kind of gathered there, and then of course an area that is perfectly suited for plants to kind of spring up. So it's really important that you have those kinds of looks that are natural looking, and that the plants don't look out of place. They don't look like they've been placed there. They look like they've just naturally sprung up, and I find that to be very important. Now, one of the other things that I want to talk about before I close out this video is choosing plants according to the light in your tank. In other words, how long you're going to have the lights on in your tank every day. I only keep the lights on in this particular tank about 6 hours a day roughly, and that would be between like 10 in the morning and 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon. And that gives us an opportunity to enjoy the tank and for the fish to get some light in. This is not a real sophisticated light system, so the plants are not requiring that in the first place, because these are very low light type plants. Anything that's got the name Anubias on it, and Java fern, and some of those kinds of plants are really going to be low light plants. They don't require a lot of light to thrive in your tank. So it's important that you know that. Do a little bit of homework before you decide which plants you're going to put in your tank, and that gives you an opportunity to really kind of lay it out and know that these plants are going to thrive in low light conditions, and that they're also going to serve some purposes. Now, as I said, One of the main purposes for lots of plants in your tank is to keep that really important filtration system level that you're adding to it in place, and that would be for these plants to suck up the organics in the substrate and also in the water column itself, to make sure that all of these plants are feeding off from that. I even have tanks around my gallery where I have sumps that are down below the actual aquarium itself, and we will have plants that are just trays of plants that are sitting in there, because we use that as a way of filtering out some of the waste and some of the nitrates and nitrites that are in the tank, and they do an absolutely fantastic job of naturally doing that. Now, as you can see, the discus in this tank, there's the same ones that you've probably seen in this tank before, with a very different look sometimes, because I do change this tank around once or twice a year just to give it a completely different look. And that's kind of what you're seeing here. We've gone from that really fine sand the last time you saw this to this more little bit larger pebbles of sand that I thought looked really nice and easier to care for, easier to vacuum up and keep waste out of it. When I do water changes a couple of times a week, I like to make sure that I'm vacuuming in the plant area and all down in this area here with an attachment that goes on the end of my Python. I have one by Hyger and I have one by Python. Both of them are equally as good. They're both great systems, but the Python does have some attachments where you can get down into these really tight areas right in here, in here, in here, over along these edges, and of course on the back side of the plants, and just glide along the top, and this heavier sand will not get sucked up in the system, and you can really vacuum it up nicely and keep it very, very clean for your fish. And it's important. Now, this is a very well established tank. We've got 2 canister filters running on here, plus it's an all-in-one system, so it has its own system that came with the tank years ago when I bought this. So it's really nice to have all of that filtration in here. And one of the things that I would tell you is the plants, as I said, really make a unbelievable extra layer of filtration, as I said, that pick up the organics in your tank. If you tend to overfeed maybe a little bit, or you have these kinds of areas where food can get trapped and you don't have the fish that can get down in there, the waste that goes into the bottom of your tank in the substrate area, of course, is fertilizer for these plants and keeps them as beautiful and green as you see here. And that is very, very important. Well, I want to thank you for joining me today. I wanted to talk about the planted tank and this particular type of planted tank because it's simple. It's a small little area of plants that you can put a lot of plants in one small section of your aquarium and get a lot of benefits from it. As I said, taking those organics and really eating them up and using them to make the plants grow nicely, stay nice and bright green, and that sort of thing. If you start to see your plants yellowing for some reason, there's 2 reasons why that could be. Either they're not getting enough nutrition, and you may need to add some extra fertilizers. I tend to do that a couple of times a month, just to make sure that everything is staying in top shape. But for the most part, the yellowing can also be from not enough sunlight or natural light coming in, or lights from your tank coming or not being on long enough. So if you see that happening, try those two things. Add a little bit of fertilizer to the tank, and maybe leave your lights on an extra hour or two a day to give them that photosynthesis that's required to keep the plants growing, and using the organics in the tank to really make them thrive. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. Hit that like button. I really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so, and also share with your friends. Please leave any comments down below here, and I will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours typically. If you have a question that's very specific to the planted aquarium on this particular video, you can ask me, and I will be absolutely happy to answer those questions for you. I can't cover everything in one video, but again, leave those comments down below, and I'll be glad to get back to you on a one-on-one basis and help you out here. Thanks for joining me. Very, very important to understand the role of plants in your aquarium, and I'm glad that we covered that today, and I hope I covered it enough to give you an idea so that when you go to maybe add some plants to your tank, you have a better idea what you might be looking for to add. And it's not saying that you can't, do something in this area around it. I just think with discus fish, it leaves a cleaner area for the fish to move around and doesn't cramp the tank, and that's very, very important. So anyways, thanks for joining me. As I said, we will see you on the next one. Until then, we're out of here.